Before we get into this video, I want to remind you that all wrestling moves are dangerous. Even a headlock takeover takes a lot of talent and a lot of skill, because if that goes wrong, you're gonna fall on the head. And put your hand up if you wanna fall on your head, hand goes down. I missed. And of course there is a scale to all of this, especially in 2023, because we are seeing crazy maneuvers being done. So my name is Simon What Culture. Thank you for joining me. Please do subscribe. This is 10 wrestling moves more dangerous than you realize. Asterisks, all of them. Number 10, the reverse Frankensteiner. Frankensteiner has been around since the 80s, and like all things in life, it has evolved. It was Scott Steiner especially who was like, despite being massive, look what I'm going to do. And he'd go to the top rope and he would rack those massive legs around somebody's head and he'd fall backwards and flip them onto the mat. I mean, that didn't even make any sense. We were always going to take this further, which is when we went, let's just do it in reverse. And do not forget, walking forward is scary enough, but when you're going backwards, you can't see anything, which means you just have to keep everything crossed and hope. An example for this too was back in 2019 in NXT UK, when we had Mark Andrews taking on Noam Dar. Now, if you know these two wrestlers, they're safe as houses, but it still went wrong. Because basically Dar couldn't get his hand in the right position, so when they did land, he completely blew out his knee, and he even went as far to say, well, it could have gone even worse than this, and maybe I would have lost my leg entirely. I'm not kidding. So please remember that wrestlers are putting their lives on the line all of the time, so if one does make a mistake, let it slide. Number 9, the diving crossbody. So straight away you're like, just because you've seen loads of crossbodies in your life, so you have decided it is a nice, simple and easy move. And sure, when it goes right, everybody is happy. Sometimes it doesn't. Because it's still one human launching themselves at another, as very sadly Corey Graves found out when he was still an in-ring competitor down in NXT in 2014. Because he was taking on Sami Zayn. When the former El Generico did do a top rope crossbody, it looked like they came together wonderfully. Well done. Because what did happen, and what can happen a lot of wrestling, is that Corey didn't really tuck his neck enough, which means he slammed his head on the floor, and not only did he suffer a concussion, but he had so many of these, he was forced to retire, and that is just sad in your tum-tum stuff. Thankfully, he did find a second wing as a wrestling announcer, and I just want to say this. I think that dude is underrated. He's really good at what he does. Number 8, the rear naked choke. I mean, this is a real move, people, and you see it in MMA all the time, and if somebody wasn't there to tell someone else to let go, the other person would die. Because basically some wrestling submissions are taken from the real world and we just back it off a little bit so that we don't hurt people. And given that mixed martial arts has become so popular, the rear naked choke soon got worked in. When I think about this move too, I always think about Samoa Joe, who has made it his own for years. Although recently Jon Moxley has also enjoyed the bulldog choke. Look at his face when he's doing it. I think he enjoys it a little bit too much. As a quick comparison too, there have been fighters who have won championships with this move, so the next time you see it, always give it the respect it deserves. Definitely don't go try this at home. Number 7, the doomsday device. Right, I am a wrestler, and if I turned up to a show and someone said, "Hi, Simon, we're gonna give you the old school original Legion of Doom / Road Warriors doomsday device," I'd be like, man, please no, I don't want to do it. Because this was just so scary. You never notice it when you're a kid. But when Animal would grab their opponent and put them on their shoulders, and Hawk would come off the top with a clothesline, the poor dude up there has to basically do a 360 flip or a 180 flip. He has to flip and try not to land on his neck. I mean, can you imagine the fear? Now, this was never going to have a 100% success rate, because how could it? Which is why at one point Henry Godwin did indeed land on his head and he broke his neck. Thankfully, after this, we modified the move a little bit, which is essentially what we're doing today. Because rather than make this poor guy do this damn flip, now you just go down onto your back. Now, this is still pretty intimidating because you're up in the air, but whatever we can do to protect wrestlers is what we should be doing. Genuinely though, to the people that have taken that, more power to you. I respect the heck out of you. Number 6, the Argentine backbreaker. Lots of wrestlers do indeed cycle through finishing moves until they find the one they want. For example, Shawn Michaels used to do the teardrop suplex, whereas Randy Orton had the ozone. That move was absolutely terrible. John Cena was also doing this as well because it's just part of the process, and we can bring Nikki Bella into this conversation. And I remember when she used to use the X Factor. Sometimes she would just punch people really hard in the face with her forearm too to get the victory, before she finally settled on the TKO. Then there was a reason for this. Because before that, she was doing the Argentine backbreaker, which is when you get somebody up on your shoulders and you drop to your knees to give the impression that you've taken this person's spine and you try to crack it in two. So you are not a nice person. The problem is it means on a nightly basis you are just throwing your knees into the floor, and also, given that you're carrying a human, it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the neck. As such, Nikki suffered from such bad neck issues she had to start to wind her career down, which is when she did switch to TKO before she was like, you know what, screw all of this, and she moved on to the Fear Lock. Actually, I think it was called the Fearless Lock, because she was fearless, but she was promoting fear. But again, when you see this move, it looks pretty cool, but do you think there's any potential for injury? No. No, you don't. Number 5, the suicide dive. I mean, what does that even mean anymore? Because the suicide dive, or the dive, is just a general term for any wrestler that runs towards the ropes and then goes whoop and throws himself to the outside. I mean, we do get it so many times in 2023, it's crazy, but I'm going to repeat myself here. You have to respect the effort, because ultimately you don't know where you're going to land. It has ended careers or severely limited them, because look at someone like Jorge Estrada Jr. When he took one of these from Edge, he thought he was so screwed up, he retired. Now, thankfully, he was able to rehab and make a return to the ring, but do you think he enjoyed that time? No. And there's worse stories too, because very sadly, it wasn't the same for Rick Rude. The man who liked to wiggle his hips was struggling anyway because of all the years of wrestling, but when he took a dive from Sting, he kind of fell backwards and he fell off this platform and he landed so bad on his back. That was the straw that broke the camel's neck. That's not the phrase, but he had to retire. Now again, there's no doubt that it was wear and tear that contributed to this, but it was a dive that put the full stop on it. And as we are here, I just want to make it very clear, Sting is a legend and Rick Rude is a legend. And in fact, we do not celebrate him enough. What a flippin' heel. And before the double foot stomp. I mean, this is one of those moves where the magic is still alive. How does someone go to the top rope and take their whole body and both their feet and just stomp on someone, yet somehow everyone's okay? I don't get it. Even Shinsuke Nakamura has described this as like being stabbed in the chest. And if we are talking about this move, we have to go to Finn Balor, who has basically perfected it with the coup de grace. When he went nuts with them at Extreme Rules 2022 when he was taking on Edge though, and he just gave it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, go back and look at Adam Copeland's face. On every single one, he is kind of terrified because he understands the deal. So it really does take a crazy amount of skills to pull it off because it is so dangerous. Now that I think about it, when was the last time somebody kicked out of the coup de grace? I think it was like Kevin Owens back in 2015. So we have finally got it. It's also why Roman Reigns was very lucky when the Demon Finn was about to hit the coup de grace on him. But all of a sudden, there was a problem with the square circle and he just fell down. Let's not talk about it. Number 3, the Rocker Dropper. The Rockers were a very successful tag team, this we know, and they also gave birth to this stupid idea that when you have a tag team, one has to be really good, and the other one is just some schmo riding their coattails. It's nonsense. One thing that Marty Jannetty did have before Shawn Michaels is he did come up with a finish that he's happy to ride all the way to Tinseltown, and as you know, it was the Rocker Dropper. A take on the Famouser, if we were going to compare it to something in 2023, Jannetty would basically put you in a wrist lock before he took your leg, put it over the back of your head, and then smashed you into the mat. This was far more intricate than it looked, as was proven when we got to December 1990. Because prior to a Superstars taping, the Rockers were taking on the genius and enhancement talent Chris Austin. This didn't go very well at all. The combination of bad luck and inexperience meant when Austin took this move, he landed so badly that he was paralyzed, and he then successfully sued the then WWF for millions of dollars. Interestingly, Jannetty and Michaels broke up soon after this when Billy Gunn inherited the move, but you won't be surprised to hear he got rid of the wrist lock bit for obvious reasons. Number 2, the pedigree. So just think about this for a second. You're looking down at the floor, and then somebody takes your arms and they put them behind the back and then go, here you go, pal, and you get jumped in the air before going flying down to the ring canvas. Does that sound fun? I don't think it does. It's why Kane used to put his knee out when he took this because he didn't want his face smashing into the floor. And of course, if you are interested, Triple H got it from Killer Kowalski because that was his trainer. You can see the danger of this too if we go all the way back to 1996, where essentially you see a real life pedigree. Because Hunter Hearst Helmsley was taking on Marty Garner on an episode of Superstars, there's that show again. And I suppose Marty had never taken a move like this before, so when he was hooked, he went, it's just a suplex, and he threw himself up in the air. And you know how physics works, the higher you go up, the faster you're going to come down. So when Triple H pulled him to do the move, he just went crashing into the ring. If you've never seen this, you've got to YouTube it right now. It was so bad that Marty too was hurt, and he was able to sue the company for money as well. And it could also be the reason why soon after this, Triple H started releasing his opponent's arms when he was going in the downward position, because it gives you a little bit of room for maneuver. And look, just because hundreds of wrestlers have taken this thing and it's been perfectly safe, it doesn't take away the risk factor. I understand, I keep going on about this, so I'll just leave it. Number 1, the moonsault. So this has got to be the ultimate, well, I've seen it load, so who cares? No. Because let's break it down again. You climb to the top rope, and the back of your head is facing the person you want to hit, and you just go flop, and you jump backwards, and you hope that you get this perfectly correct. I mean, what are we doing? It had consequences too, because the legendary Hayabusa had to retire after he misjudged a springboard one of these. And talking about that move, we got to go to the Lion Salt on Chris Jericho. Because when he was taking on Kurt Hennig in WCW, he too didn't get this right. And because Kurt was the best wrestler ever, he realized this, and he put his knees up to help Jericho and make sure he didn't fall on his head. I mean, once again, if you haven't seen that, it's absolutely incredible. We've also seen times when the person taking this move just gets absolutely crushed because, again, you don't 100% know where you're going and you have a lot of elements to your body. So I've lied to you, I'm saying it again. Can we just appreciate the skill that wrestlers have? I think we should. Now, please, any other moves that you think are crazy dangerous, leave in the comments below, and then that guy will arrive and go, these aren't dangerous, even though they've never done wrestling in their life. But hey ho, that's the world we live in. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Then go to whatculture.com where you can read articles like this with your eyes. You can follow us on social media at whatculture WWE, and I'm Miller316. Look, there's videos on the screen, touch one. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you very much for joining me as always. And genuinely, every single wrestling move is terrifying because you never know. Stay safe, stay proud. See you soon.